folks, you're with Tacitus today. Tacitus today, your pushback channel, and thank you for joining this audio live stream. In this essay, I'd like to talk about referendums sort of generally, and also to look at the Polish referendum on do the citizens want mass migration in Poland. Now, there was a boycott by the leftist parties in the EU and globalist WEF-sponsored political parties in Poland to boycott that referendum. So the outcome was, as I think accounting is still going on, but to my understanding, something like 95% plus of the populace voted against mass migration in the referendum. So they voted to not have mass migration in the referendum. But because of the boycotting, only about half the population ended up casting a vote. There's also quite a bit of talk that the EU had infiltrated the election officials and so on, so that the how to vote, the referendum voting card that was meant to go, because there's also a national vote at the same time, the cards to vote weren't handed out as the federal election voting forms were handed out. Now, I don't know whether that's true or not. It does seem rather odd that the amount of people that voted in the election was substantially more than the amount of people that voted in the referendum on mass migration. That seems very suspicious, the difference in the numbers there. But maybe the people came to Poland who counted the 2020 Joe Biden presidential election numbers, the most popular president ever in American history. So maybe those guys who did that vote counting came over to Poland. I don't know. But let's just have a look at this. Even if we assume, like, if you look at say, leftist leaning people all over the Western world, only 35 to 40% support mass migration, and of those, the majority are, if they're not public servants, they're college kids. So once you take out the college kids out of that equation, then you're looking at a very small proportion. At best you'd be getting 15%, and that's generous, that would support mass migration. But when you look at any sort of referendum, you have to look at is the question bland and neutral? Do you want this, yes or no? Yeah, that's what. But how do you account for different questions or how the question is phrased? And I'll use two extremes here to illustrate the point. Now, this is a question that's going to try and get voters to support mass migration. Little Sula is 3 years old and surrounded by evil fascist Nazis, and she's dressed in pink, by the way, and evil fascists, and they're trying to kill Sula, tear her limb from limb. Little Sula, her mother is crying, little baby Sula, and all she wants to do is come to the West to be safe from Hitler. And are you going to stop Sula? Do you want Nazis to kill little Sula? You fucking murdering fascist. So are you going to vote yes to let little Sula come into the... So, well, yes, I don't want that to happen to little Sula. Let's vote yes for mass migration. Now let's go to the opposite end of the thing. Abdul wants to come to the West to sponge off and freeload off the welfare system. He wants to rape as many pure little white girls as he can, and he wants to run around the streets with machete, chopping people up at will and at random. And he wants to say, Allahu Akbar as he does it, or something. So that's the other end of the equation, or the other extremity of the same question. So now hardly anyone's going to vote for, well, I don't want some machete wielding maniac in my street. No, I'm going to vote. So those are the two extremes. Now, in between somewhere is in between those two extremes is the neutral question. And I think the Polish sort of people got that, but or the election sort of question, referendum question there sort of got that. But really, anywhere you go around the Western world, you won't get a majority of people who will support mass migration. Now, if you support migration, you don't support mass migration. So let's say the question is, should we have migrants that speak, I'll use Poland as a thing, should we have migrants that speak good, high school, senior high school level Polish, who have internationally recognized qualifications, not sort of Ooga type university things, but internationally recognized qualifications. Also, they possess skills and experience that are needed in the Polish economy, that are needed today urgently. And should they be either entitled to emigrate to Poland and or have say 3-year work visas, for example, because the shortage of the skill won't last forever. It'll be temporary shortage. So, and that they wish to integrate into Polish society. So let's suppose you put that question, then I'm sure you'd get a majority of people saying, well, yeah, I've got no problem with that. They speak Polish, they've got the skills, they've got the education, they've got the experience, they want to integrate, they want to be Polish. They don't want to hang on to the stuff from the third world shithole they came from. They actually want to be Polish. No problem with that at all. Now, if you did that, the amount of people from the third world who would actually make it into Poland, because Poland's not a rich country, they're a middle level economy, so the freeloaders from the third world don't want to go to all the rich economies. So Poland, wouldn't be out of the realms of, sure, some of them would go there, but if you look at the amount of people who would meet that, speak Polish and all that sort of stuff, you look at the people who meet that criteria, then it's a minuscule number. They'd be lucky to even get a couple of hundred a year on that basis, and that's easily, they can easily be assimilated and integrated. That's no big deal. And those are the people that really want to go there because they want to be there, not just freeloaders who want to get out of their shithole that they're in. So, but you wouldn't get very many. But the same goes anywhere in the Western world. You look at the amount of people the mass migrants that come to Australia. Very few have any useful qualifications, and even the government or the public service admits that at the very outside, this is being generous to the extreme, only 5% of the migrants coming into Australia actually have any usable skills. Not just their PhDs in rocket science, but have any usable skills. 95% are just dead wood that are being brought in because the globalists are ordering and demanding that it be so. It's changed the nature and complexion of the population and the nature of the society in the West. And this is happening all over the West. At the same time, all across the West, Canada, the US, Australia, and Britain all had record numbers of mass migrants coming in at the exact same time. I mean, could you get any more evidence that it's being centrally orchestrated and directed? You couldn't. Now, on the matter of would in any referendum, would mass migration get approved by the people? No, not in any case. Again, including the college kids and the public servants, you're looking at the very outside, 25% of the population will agree to mass migration. And they'll be the people who are either too stupid or too immune from the college kids who've got no idea, or the wealthier people who live in the suburbs and the areas and the schools and so on, that they're not going to meet they're not going to meet the mass migrants. They'll meet the rich Chinese and Indian elites, but they won't meet the mass migrants, not the 95% illiterate hoi polloi from the mud huts. They're not going to meet them or have anything to do with them. The only time they ever meet these people is when they come to, mow the lawn or clean the swimming pool or clean the houses and so on. I was at the house of we were over there having lunch, and they had the cleaners in, and so this they had this whole bunch of illiterate peasant cleaners, and they were talking a sort of, I don't know, a pidgin version of Mandarin, and I picked it up because I speak some Mandarin, Mandarin Chinese, that is, and so I listened to them, and they're just rural, illiterate rural peasants, and I don't know about mentally retarded in this area, but there's certainly no IQs over 90 in that group. And they've been brought in, to clean the house, and it's clean. it's sort of textbook central casting exploitation of third world peasant labour. But there you go. And they're running around this $5 million house, doing the cleaning and getting shouted at by like this foreman who's getting stuck into them and berating them and so on. And they take all these denunciations and threats and accusations quite well, really, all considering. I suppose it's a better life here than it is in China, or rural China. But one suspects that if they step out of line, the reason I say that is the amount of times the foreman, who's a woman, by the way, the amount of times she said something about, I'll talk to your mother about this, as she was berating them, suggesting that and I couldn't quite pick up the whole context of it, but suggesting that if you don't do as you're told, we'll go after your family. I really got that was the what was being said. Nonetheless, there are numerous labour hire scams and shams that provide these peasants to do all sorts of work in the first world. But if we look at the amount of people that will support this mass migration, it's very small. And they're either those who have a vested interest in it or are too stupid to understand what's going on. The starry-eyed college kids, as a case in point, they said, "Oh, it's equality and we're fighting Nazis," and so on. But the people who have to live their lives day to day and pay their bills and suffer the declining living standards that everyone in the West is suffering, with remarkable, the decline is quite unanimous across all these Western countries at the same time. Again, clearly giving away that it's essentially directed and controlled, by the globalists, centrally directed and controlled scam that's been forced on us all. But if the globalists put the mass migration, or allowed the governments, which they won't, but if they allowed the governments to put the mass migration thing to a referendum, it would lose everywhere. But every aspect of the globalist project, be it the climate stuff, or the mass migration, or the LGBT in schools, or everything that the globalists are using to exploit and create division within Western society, none of it would win. None of it would win in a referendum, and would be, as the Polish exercise has shown, 95% against mass migration. It would lose everywhere. And the globalists know this. This is why they won't allow referenda to be held, and why, when the Polish government announced they would be holding a referendum on mass migration, the EU went ballistic and made all sorts of dire threats, and you're all Nazis and this sort of thing. Well, no, we're asking the people to vote for us. But the globalists say, no, the people don't have a say in the key things. That's not it. You can't allow the people to have a say, because they might make a decision, and probably will make a decision, that doesn't suit the globalist agenda. Therefore, it cannot be allowed. But we can see here also in the Voice, there was a referendum in Australia, just to recap, a referendum in Australia just a few days ago, actually, where the government, the globalist-controlled World Economic Forum flunky stooge government, wanted to insert racial division and race hustling and grifting within the constitution between the Indigenous black people of Australia and the rest of the population. So have a special blacks only type parliament, or advisory body to parliament, with very uncertain powers. Do they have powers of veto or powers of advisory? And this would be something the courts would decide, as it was endlessly litigated, with shovels and buckets of money supplied by the globalists to divide Australia and create that architecture of race hustling that there isn't enough of here, that the globalists believe. So, and it was defeated. I think that the final count hasn't come up, but I think the final count's looking like it's going to be 62% against and 38% for. That seems, I'm surprised the amount of people are voting for it. But again, if you take out the young people and the college kids, who again, all starry-eyed, they don't really know what they're voting for, don't understand it. They're the ones that, if you take those numbers out, that you're not even in double digits. So, if the voting age was changed, for example, the voting age was changed from 23, from 18 to 23, with exemptions for people in military service, for example, but it was changed voting, then it would have been hammered. It would be, 82 to 18 against putting this black-only parliament into the constitution. Now, there's a lot of fallout from the people that wanted this black-only parliament, the race hustlers and the grifters, and the usual, the commentariat in the media, and globalist stooges and so on, the college kids as well, of course. But the people that wanted this race hustler type parliament, they're saying, well, it's the Donald Trump voters that voted against it. It's just we've got all these dumb fuck people, these rednecks, these Nazis, these fucking fascists who just don't know what's right and good and just and proper, and they voted against it. And there's just too many Nazis, swastika. There's just too many of these Nazis everywhere. But the good people, they voted for it. And there was one of the commentators from the commentariat. He's a super lefty stooge flunky, and he was, well, people who've got a good education, they did vote for it, but people that left high school, they don't have a gender studies, Marxist sociology degree. The people that don't have those, they voted against it. So really, it's a case of the good and bright and better educated. But it's education. All these starry-eyed kids have been socialised to hate white society, to hate white people, to hate white history. Those are the people that should be making the decision, not those other people. These are people that think that white history has got a lot to be said positively about it, which means they're fucking Nazis, and they shouldn't be allowed to vote, and their vote shouldn't really count for anything. It's the people who hate white society. They're the only ones that should be allowed to vote. I mean, don't you know anything, you fucking moron? So these are the sentiments that are being expressed. And the people that are against mass migration or against having black-only parliaments, they're the liars. They're the cheats and the liars, the misinformation, the disinformation. They're the Nazis. But the people that are for it, it doesn't matter what lies we tell, because we're only telling these lies, the many lies we do tell, we're only telling in a good cause, which means we're still the good people, because our lies aren't really lies, because they're lies that are well-intentioned. So they're good lies rather than, fuck me. This is the delusion these people sort of live in. But looking at the Polish referendum, I wouldn't have thought it would have been quite that high. 95%, and I think it's actually a bit more, 95% against mass migration. Now, I don't know if I think if it was everybody was voting, you'd probably get something like 75-25, 80-20. I think it would be somewhere in that range. But it goes to show that when a referendum is put up, that the globalist policies will be crushed by the people, which is why a Donald Trump will win an election where that's free and fair and where the votes are properly counted. A Donald Trump or somebody representing the anti-globalist position will win hands down in an election, in spite of having the entire commentariat and the media establishment against them. You've been with Tacitus today, your Pushback channel. Thank you for listening.